maybe over straight to the Chief Secretary to the President and Cabinet Notice.
Good afternoon and welcome, members of media, to our usual briefing session after Cabinet. Today is the second meeting, Cabinet decision matrix briefing. The chair, who happens to be our minister, responsible for information and broadcasting services, as usual, she will present the major decisions of Cabinet. We hope by the time you are ready to pose questions, members of Cabinet who are expected to be here would have arrived. But we didn't want to waste also the time. We've been here for some time. The minister has some assignment outside Harare. They want to travel while it is still here. We don't want mishaps. We want them to travel. We are happy that they will reach their destination safely. So without much ado, let me hand over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chief Secretary. You are very kind. And once again, I want to welcome you to the second meeting Cabinet Decision Matrix. We always thank you for being there and passing on the message to the public of this country. Sincere apologies for my colleagues, because you are aware Cabinet was held today on a Wednesday, and Wednesday is also the question time in Parliament. So most of my colleagues are in Parliament, but as soon as they are through, they will be rushing here to answer any of your questions. Today, Cabinet received a report on the subsidized roller mill prices. The Minister of Finance and Economic Development briefed Cabinet on the action taken to normalize the roller mill supply situation. He explained that at the first meeting, Cabinet had noted that the then prevailing price of roller mill provided arbitrage opportunities to some unscrupulous people. Government had thus moved in to redress the situation using a two-pronged approach. Firstly, it had been decided that the price be raised to a market price of $70 per 10 kg from the subsidized $50. Secondly, a targeted coupon scheme for the vulnerable is in the offing with the compilation of a database at an advanced stage, and this should be done as quickly as possible. The scheme will actually be rolled out in a week's time. Then Cabinet also got a report on the second money laundering and terrorist financing national risk assessment and the national AML CFP strategic plan. Cabinet considered and approved that report on this second money laundering and terrorist financing national risk assessment, NRA, in Zimbabwe's third national anti-money laundering, combating financing of terrorism and countering the financing of proliferation strategic plan for the period 2020-2025, and this was presented by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Honorable Professor Matuli. This is in order to address the challenges outlined in the second NRA report. Government has come up with the third national anti-money laundering, combating finance of terrorism and countering the financing of proliferation strategic plan, which this will cover the period 2020, as I said, to 2025. The strategic plan is premised on 4 pillars over the next 5 years. And these are the pillars. 1, awareness and capacity building. 2, parallel financial investigations by law enforcement agencies. And 3, confiscation and forfeiture of criminal proceeds. And 4, beneficial ownership issues. These are the 4 pillars which this strategic plan will be premised on. The 2020 to 2025 strategic plan, therefore, positions Zimbabwe on solid ground that will enhance its domestic capacity and capability to respond effectively to the challenges of money laundering, terrorist financing, and financing of proliferation MLTFP and its associated financial crimes. Then that was on the update on the money laundering. The next update was given on the tripartite negotiating forum, and this was done. The meeting was held on the 5th and 7th of February 2020. Cabinet considered and approved the recommendations from the tripartite negotiating forum, TNF, as presented by the Minister of Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare. Regarding the matter on the financing of minimum wage, Cabinet directed that dialogue be pursued between the three, that is Labour, Government and business, to ensure an urgent win-win solution to the matter given the prevailing economic conditions. Then also we got Cabinet received the proposed Zimbabwe National Plan of Action for the Universal Periodic Review 2017 to 2021. Cabinet considered and approved the proposed Zimbabwe National Plan of Action, which was presented by the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziyambi Ziyambi. Cabinet noted that the National Universal Periodic Review, UPR, is a state-driven peer review process that provides the opportunity for each state to identify key human rights issues and challenges, as well as to periodically declare what actions it has taken to improve human rights situations and fulfill human rights obligations. The recommendations accepted by Zimbabwe for the period 2017 to 2021 cover a wide range of human rights issues, which include the following among many others: the actions, activities, and programs to address the adopted recommendations according to the National Plan of Action include these. 1. Identifying treaties that need domestication and taking measures to domesticate them. 2. Identifying legislation and policies that need to be aligned with the Constitution. 3. Reviewing the legislation establishing independent commissions and supporting those commissions. 4. To continue training law enforcement agents, prison officers, and other public officers on human rights. And 5. Strengthening and decentralizing justice delivery institutions. 6. Enhancing programs and activities aimed at promoting gender equality and eliminating discrimination against women and gender-based violence. And finally, to deepen electoral reforms. Cabinet noted that some of the activities and programs had already been implemented, while others remain work in progress. Then Cabinet was briefed by the Minister of Health on the progress regarding the 2019 novel coronavirus outbreak. Honorable Obadiah Moyo, the Minister of Health, presented the brief to the Cabinet on the national progress regarding this coronavirus outbreak. The work was commenced on 30 December, and information came out on 30 December and was upgraded to a public health emergency by the World Health Organization on 31st January, with effect from 25 January 2020. The Ministry of Health and Child Care activated a surveillance system which includes follow-up of travelers to Zimbabwe who visited China and other affected countries. To date, 1,433 travelers have been reported to have passed through Zimbabwe's ports of entry. These travelers are subjected, those found with their temperatures high, they are subjected to self-quarantine for a 21-day surveillance period. And all the travelers coming from areas like China and other affected countries are subjected to 21-day surveillance period, subjected to quarantine for a 21-day surveillance period. This is done in order to ensure early detection of symptoms. The national response mechanisms for surveillance and early detection of any possible cases remains activated, especially at all ports of entry in our country. The main treatment centers will be situated at the Wilkins Infectious Disease Hospital, that is for the northern part of the country, and Thorngrove Infectious Diseases Hospital for the southern region. The National Microbiology Reference Laboratory was assessed and found to have good testing capacity and adequately equipped. Medicines for treatment have been identified locally and will be strategically positioned at the treatment centers. The Ministry of Health and Child Care is currently working on modalities to ensure that adequate personnel for identification and management of cases, particularly at ports of entry, are trained and equipped for that arduous task ahead of them. Government wants to assure the nation that it is ready to tackle the coronavirus scourge head on, and there is no need for Zimbabweans to panic as the situation is very much under control. The Ministry of Health and Child Care will continue to give updates on developments regarding this virus. Then we also received a report as Cabinet on the flash floods in the Nuswam area in Binga district. Cabinet received that report on the flash floods from the Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Water and Resettlement as the acting Minister of Local Government and Public Works. It was reported that due to the heavy backlash, all the 21 families in the floodplain are marooned and 11 people are hanging on trees waiting for assistance. Cabinet noted that the Air Force of Zimbabwe, Sub-Aqua Unit stationed at Fairbridge, Bulawayo, and the Civil Protection Department all had been mobilized to assist those affected families. And the Cabinet approved the following recommendations, short-term recommendations: that there be a quick evacuation of affected families from these areas to areas of safety. Also, that non-food and food items be mobilized for the affected families, and that the District Civil Protection Committee should continuously monitor the general health and welfare of the people for possible outbreaks of waterborne related diseases. The Cabinet also received a detailed report on the 33rd Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, which was held from the 9th to the 10th February 2020 in Addis Ababa. This was presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable S.B. Moyo. The summit was held under the theme, Silencing the Guns, Creating Conducive Conditions for Africa's Development. In his response of the Peace and Security Council on its activities and the state of peace and security in Africa, His Excellency, the President, Comrade E.G. Mnangagwa, had appreciated that the show of solidarity with Zimbabwe against sanctions had demonstrated and affirmed the importance of union attached to the defense of the provisions of the Constitutive Act of the organization. Cabinet noted with satisfaction that the Assembly had adopted a resolution which inter alia expressed solidarity with the people and government of Zimbabwe and urged the government of the United States of America to consider lifting the long-standing sanctions imposed on the government and people of Zimbabwe so that we facilitate the socio-economic recovery of this country. The Assembly also acknowledged the steps already taken by the European Union towards removing sanctions, urging that all remaining sanctions be terminated. The Minister of Foreign Affairs also reported that His Excellency the President had signed the MOU of the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM. In his accession speech, the President noted that his administration is committed to open and responsive governance, citing the political, legislative and media reforms that were being undertaken to deepen democracy in our country. The President also participated in the 3rd African Business Forum which was held under the theme Investing in People, Planet and Prosperity. And this was hosted by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA. This was on the 11th February, and it was done on the margins of IMO. He had taken the opportunity, the president took the opportunity to invite business to consider investing in Zimbabwe's energy sector, particularly in electricity generation, so that will enable increased production in the industrial and agricultural sectors. His Excellency the President also held bilateral engagements with the President of Algeria and with the President of Rwanda, where both leaders had agreed to enhance bilateral cooperation in the field of education. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade held bilateral engagements with the Minister of State for International Cooperation of UAE, United Arab Emirates, and also her name is Her Excellency Mrs. Rem Al Hashimi. The outcome of the discussions were this. 1. Zimbabwe was invited to participate at the 2020 World Exposition, Expo 2020, to be held in Dubai from 20 October 2020 to 10 April 2021. The Minister appealed to Zimbabwe to capitalize on the Expo 2020, as this was a good gesture for the country, a good chance for the country to market itself. The UAE Minister pledged to financially assist artists from Zimbabwe to exhibit at Expo 2020. Furthermore, Zimbabwe was invited to the Africa Arab Summit to be held in Saudi Arabia on the 16th of March 2020. And this is the brief from the Cabinet today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister,
Yes.
for your presentation. We will welcome Minister of Health and Childcare, who has just come in. Now I give you your chance to pose questions on the presentations emanating from decisions of Cabinet. The first session, from experience, now we will give you 3, not 4. Anyway, 3, unless if there is demand. So 3 questions first.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I just wanted
My name and know you, but you have to stay.
my name is Blessed Mhlanga, and I'm with the Newsday. The Cabinet noted something to do with the gazetted salaries, which looked at the Cabinet getting around 160. I wanted to understand what exactly it noted, because he said that I think he read something that the Cabinet noted that there should be discussion around it and make sure that there's a quick...
Before you go very far, there was no discussion. These are archival, the pickings of things which we discussed last year. There is nothing, no discussion to Cabinet on wages. When I saw it, I said, who is manufacturing archival material?
No, I can answer.
Yes.
I'm now confused.
No,
it's a quiet.
Because she had to
No, she's going to answer
Yeah.
it. She will answer in her own way.
Yeah.
But I'm mentioning is the head of the minute taker. There were no discussions on that issue, but she's going to respond to that.
And the other issue I just wanted clarity on as well is that you mentioned that there are people who are hanging from trees and who are marooned. I just wanted to know how long have they been hanging from those trees, and there was that is they should be evacuated soon. I also wanted the definition of soon.
Right. Yes, please.
Yes, sir, James Minyaka ZBC. Minister, may you elaborate a bit on the upon a scheme targeting, you said it's targeting vulnerable households, vulnerable people. How are the households going to, how is it going to be done? Are the households going to be registered in their localities, or is there going to be a central registration point?
Okay. Thank you. You just said right at the corner there.
My name is John Kasim, Channel Africa, SABC. Still on the issue of the floods. Reports are coming that 50 or more than 50 families were affected. Of course, 21 were marooned. Now, coming to the issue of lessons learned from Cyclone Idai, we find the report started coming in Saturday, and the issue of assistance was only mentioned on Tuesday, which is a delay of 4 days. Zimbabweans are now asking, will we ever be ready in Zimbabwe when it comes to natural disasters, because we should have learned something from the Cyclone Idai?
Okay, I'll give you the last one. Yes, please.
TV. You mentioned something on the coronavirus, and you said the laboratories had actually been, it's conducted tests to actually test if to see if the country was safe, just to say. I find it very difficult to believe that we can safely say we are safe, because already there are shortages of drugs that are on demand, the BP drugs, the diabetes drugs. What guarantee do we have that the quarantine medication is going to be there? And if it is there, what guarantee do we have that if I do have it, I will quarantine myself? If I do quarantine myself, what guarantee do we have that the nation at large will be safe?
Right, I don't know.
Thank you. Yes,
Sure.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Blessed. Blessed, I think what he was asking about, on the update, which is on the report which I talked about, on the tripartite negotiating forum. You are aware that there was a meeting which was held for the tripartite negotiating forum. It was on the 5th, and they continued on the 7th, and they hasn't actually concluded on the issue of financing the minimum wage. And this is what Cabinet is saying, that that platform is actually a very good platform where government, labor, and business come together. So the Cabinet, what they've actually recommended is to say, continue the negotiation, the dialogue, and that should be done with in mind the fact that this matter is very, very urgent. This is a very urgent matter. We need a win-win solution. And I must say, I attended the TN meetings. It is a very good platform to bring all Zimbabweans together. That is government, labor, and business. And it's a very good platform. And the issue, the dialogue way is the way to go. And this is what Cabinet is actually saying. It's good. Let's continue the dialogue. And just taking in mind, making sure that we move fast, because it's really urgent that we come up with a solution considering the prevailing economic challenges. And on the issue which you raised about hanging, in fact, when the report was given by Honorable Terence Chiris, unfortunately he's not here, he's the acting Minister of Ministry of Local Government. Already the soldiers, and I think I indicated that the soldiers have already gone, they are already there. Our people, as soon as that started, they already went into the area. They are very much on top of the situation in making sure that they help our Zimbabweans who have been marooned. So there is no waiting time. I think I answered also SAB's question where they talked about, will you ever be ready? I think there was very quick action which was taken by the CPU, and they are already there, and they are working to make sure that they rescue all those who need to be rescued. Janet talked about the issue of the coupon. I think this is what happens in most countries, really. In December 2019, let me just make this clear, government introduced a roller mill subsidy, which was pegged at Zimbabwe dollars 50 per 10 kg bag in order to protect the vulnerable groups. However, the wide gap between the market and the subsidized price has created undesirable arbitrage opportunities for unscrupulous players, resulting in the market and supply distortions. And we know that. We all know what has been happening there. So in view of this, of the above, the government is left with no choice but to review upwards to bring the subsidized price to the market price of 70. And in so doing, that's why I say it's two-pronged. We are aware of the people who need that subsidy. And people, what the government, Ministry of Finance together with the Ministry of Labour and Social Services are doing now is coming up with a database and making it as quickly as possible that coupons will then be sent to all those families who will be then buying the maize at a subsidized price. So this is done. It's not we're not reinventing a wheel. Issue of coupons is done in many countries, and it has been very successful. In terms of knowing who are those people who are vulnerable, we have the data. We do have it. It's a question of going through all the districts and getting all those people who are vulnerable, who certainly need that subsidy. So that is what the government is doing at the moment. So that was Janet. The issue from Channel Africa, SABC, I think I've answered that. That there's a lot of work, our soldiers and CPU and all those who are always ready to help are out there to help those, to assist those who have been marooned. We certainly have learned a lot from what happened in Timanimani, and our government is ready to quickly move in and help. The fourth question is Rumbizai Tekna TV, is that right? Tekmark. Tekmark TV, okay. That's directed to you, Minister of Health. The question is, what guarantee do we have that we have the medication for this, those who will be quarantined, because there are other medicines which are not available? Thank you.
Thank you. I think you also talked about the laboratory, right? Yes, the preparedness. Yes. So the first thing I want to advise you is that we have information coming out of Geneva from the World Health Organization. They have renamed the condition to COVID-19, which is COVID-19. So CO standing for corona, VID standing for virus, D for disease, 19 coming out of 2019. So now we're going to refer to it as COVID-19 all the time. That's new information. Regarding our laboratory status, yes, it is very true. Previously, we used to send our specimens to South Africa, to KwaZulu-Natal for testing. But on this occasion, we did an assessment of our National Microbiology Reference Laboratory, and we found it to have adequate equipment. In actual fact, state-of-the-art equipment for what's called polymerase chain reaction, the PCR, testing. So it's there, at our laboratory there. And we also have the kits. We've got the test kits adequate for 300, right? So that's a big number. Those kits which are available right now. So we are safe there. I can absolutely guarantee you that as far as testing is concerned, we can do it here in Zimbabwe without having to send to South Africa. We are self-sufficient. The only thing that we want to add on the testing platform is to come up with rapid test kits, which will give us results in about 15 minutes. The current ones, the system I'm talking about, the PCR, it takes at least 5 hours. It's not long, but we want to even reduce it further. So we already found the supplier of the rapid result test kits, for COVID-19. So we are happy with that. And at the same time, the isolation facilities that we have, starting with Wilkins, top of the class, facilities. We visited that facility. They did the simulation, and was very, very happy with the performance of the staff. Well trained, knowledgeable about safety in terms of infection control. Right? So we are also very happy. If anyone was to come up with coronavirus, we can be able to test to confirm. If they were confirmed to be positive, we've got the facility to be able to isolate them. All right. And then the next thing which you're talking about is the issue of quarantine. Two differences. Quarantine means the immediate quarantine of an individual at the port of entry before you go to isolate them at an institution like the hospital, like Wilkins. All right? Previously, what we were doing is everyone comes in, we just check the temperature. If they don't have a temperature, but as long as they're coming from the affected countries, we follow them. You understand? I want you to get this very clear. They come from the affected countries, we follow them. Even if they don't have a temperature, as long as you're coming from that affected country. Okay? And then number two, now, we've gone one up in terms of being stringent in our selection. Anyone who is coming from the affected country will have to spend 21 days of follow-up, and they have to be in a single environment without having to move out. So if someone comes from China and they are coming to live in Harare, right, we get their address and they have to be at that facility without moving out of that facility. So that's what we call self-quarantine, right? And we are following on a daily basis. So you can imagine before we did the self-quarantine, you would come from China, and then you'll be roaming all over the place, and then when it comes to time for checking you, you'll be at your house, we check you, but you'll have been all over the place. So now we are saying you're not going to be all over the place. We are making sure that you are in that quarantine area. Right? So we might be saying self-quarantine, but we follow up those who are being quarantined every day and check on them and make sure that they are not going out of the facility where they will say they are going to be staying. So this is to stop also. This was in agreement with the Chinese government in order to stop people moving from China to Zimbabwe. Okay? And at the same time here also we reciprocate. We don't encourage people to travel from Zimbabwe to China or affected countries. Limit your travel. Likewise, Chinese saying, anyone who comes here, please feel free to have them on a self-quarantine basis. So they were saying 14 days. We even went it up, took it up to 21 days, just to be absolutely certain that that individual does not carry the COVID-19. So please be guaranteed that that system will be followed to the last digit. All our port health authorities, all our environmental health officers are out in full force from whatever port of entry. They are there making sure that this is adhered to. And I was the chairperson. Yes. I was in Plumtree. I was very impressed, with the way they are doing things. Right? They are making sure. They even went to the Botswana border to see what the Botswana border people were doing. Right? And they came and they are putting into practice the same standards so that, we don't have anyone escaping through our borders. And if it's something...
So it looks like we are done.
Sure. Thank you.
Someone who is coming through the Plumtree border and eventually ends up in Harare. The minute they pick up that it's someone who's coming from an affected country, they contact their Harare, colleagues, and immediately they take over. Harare will take over, and they'll be following that person on a continuous basis. And they're also making sure that their addresses are correct. That's one question which might be asked. They'll give you the wrong address. They are making sure the addresses are correct by working together with the immigration officials. So we're making it a foolproof system. You can't come and lie and say that, I'm coming from so-and-so, and I'll be staying at so-and-so, giving the wrong address. So we want the population of Zimbabwe to be 100% guaranteed and to be safe. That's the key issue. We want to be safe, and our facilities are working. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Minister of Health. That's the ministry is not leaving any stone unturned to make sure that the country is safe from this coronavirus.
Maybe the other thing which you asked was the treatment.
I think you've covered most of what you had asked.
Yeah.
I asked the Chief Secretary to get the second round of questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Second round, let's have 4 more. Yes, please.
Madam Chair, your minutes state that people are marooned, not were marooned. That means when you were given this briefing, people were still marooned and they were still hanging in the tree. So when you say that the soldiers have already gone there, but you are saying right now in your statement that they are marooned, I want to find out if they've been rescued or they are still marooned. They're still in the trees or they are still marooned. The Ministry of Health, you said that if someone is coming from the border to the point that they get to Harare, the Harare people take over. What will be happening in between? Because they'll be moving from the Plumtree border up to the time they get to the place where they're supposed to self-quarantine. And when they're self-quarantine, do you quarantine the whole family that they're staying with? Or you quarantine one person? Because if they're staying with the whole family and one of those is affected, that means that person who's leaving the house has the potential of also then affecting others. So what do you then do? Do you quarantine the whole family or just one person?
Okay.
So those are 2 questions there.
2 questions, yes. Any other volunteer? Will we give them another one after minutes? And volunteer? You want to have a follow-up, okay?
Honorable Minister, you said that you've got 300. Did you say 300 or 300,000? Because if it's 300, are we saying people that are coming and going from China around about 100 a day or 50 a day? Is 300 a guarantee to say, guys, we're safe? Because the ministry has 300 kids intact.
Okay, correct.
Right. Exactly, that's the last one. So it looks like we are done.
Sure. Thank you very much. Blessed wanted to know if people are still marooned. According to the report which has been given by the acting Minister of Local Government, Honorable Shiri, the Air Force has not been able to fly in the last few days because of the weather. So obviously there are people who have been rescued and they still want to fly around the whole area to make sure that everybody is rescued. Then the next question is to you, Honorable Minister of Health. When you quarantine one person, do you quarantine the whole family? And I think she was talking about 300 kids. Are they enough? Should that make us sit back and say we're safe? Okay, Minister.
Yes, no, let's start with the kids. Because that's, I knew that she was going to ask that. Because I could see the expression. definitely 300 is adequate for now. Considering, look at the numbers who have come in, 1,000 something, right? But not even a single one, has been confirmed, right? Through the what? The thermal detection. So this is a second level screening process, right? So we start with this thermal detector. There is no temperature. We are satisfied that they are in the safe zone, okay? And then if they were to develop, these symptoms, then we will now go into that testing. Right? So it's not everybody who is going to be tested. So 300 kids, it's a good number to start off with. If we are considering that in the whole of Africa right now, there's not even a single case. So the chances and opportunities of the disease arriving here is also limited, in line with the statistics and also in line with the deterrent mechanisms which have been put in place. So that leads to your question, whether everybody is being quarantined, right? You obviously put yourself in that position and said, if my niece arrives from an affected country and I live with them, apparatus. So your thought should be, we are vulnerable, so we must make sure that we put them in an area which is isolated from everyone else. Right? We've actually had members of the community coming forward and says, so what do we do with this individual? So we said, leave him there, don't go there, leave him in this facility until after at least 14 days. So it's a matter of common sense amongst the individual and the members of the family on how to handle that particular case. But at the same time, our officers are there to give guidance on a continuous basis. As they follow up, they receive that particular case we're talking about, Plumtree to Harare, they will meet them, and make sure that they are in self quarantine. So it's a process which will be followed up, and making sure that they don't. We are assuming that just because their temperatures are okay, and therefore just because they're coming from this affected country, if their temperatures are okay, they should be fine. And generally, we've had candidates who have passed their 14 days, and we haven't picked up any. So we're still in the correct zone, but it's an issue which obviously everybody has to be much, much more aware of, and our officers make the families aware on what to do and how to handle such a situation. I want to just advise, she previously asked about the treatment. I don't know, do you have our treatment? I can still talk about it. We have this virus, I don't know whether it's fortunately, I think it's fortunately. There have been some trials, in China and another country, where they tried ARVs, antiretrovirals. The ordinary HIV/AIDS antiretrovirals. And there's one particular one which worked, one combination which worked. So that is what is being used. And lucky enough, we have tons and tons of that. So don't worry, it will be there, available at all our health institutions. They are ready, to make sure that if they identify someone who is tested positive, they can be able to apply that type of treatment. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Minister of Health, for being exhaustive in terms of answering those questions. And I want to thank the Chief Secretary and the Chief Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, colleague, Minister of Health, for heavily responding to the questions which not a knowledge of the question will be handled. So So I want to congratulate you, and I want to thank the members of the media.